was filling in your chair, but it was grammatically, it sounded like it was you filling his chair. That's why I got confused. Yeah, there should have been a comma. All we needed was a damn comma, and that would have saved us both 10 minutes of figuring it out. Yeah, no, it was good.
What's better than $2 Tuesday at Sports Memo? How about Freebie Friday? We can't go any lower than free, and each and every Friday we'll hand select a best bet from one of the hottest handicappers on the site and give it out for free. All you have to do is each and every Friday, head over to sportsmemo.com. The Freebie Friday will be listed on the homepage, and you'll be just a click away from a free bet.
Friday, August 6th. That's my Prez impersonation, Teddy. We get out of the way at the spot at the start of the show, just so there's no confusion. I am Steve Merrill filling in for the Prez. It's his WagerTalk Today, still Friday, August 6th, 2021. And that is Teddy Covers covering himself. However, we do have Rob Veno on, who last Friday filled in for Teddy Covers as I was filling in for the Prez. So there could be a lot of confusion today. We're going to try to keep things straight. We're going to get to Rob Veno in a few moments. Also have Skee Profit on the show on Friday. But first, Teddy, I want to throw it over to you. What did you learn last night on Thursday? Football has officially begun, my friend. Going to have to wait another 7 days until we get another NFL preseason game next Thursday. There's the full week of week one. Low scoring beginning of that game. I watched a little bit of it. Third quarter is 3-0 still. Kind of how the preseason plays out in general. Takeaways from that, baseball, Olympics. What else were you looking at on Thursday, Teddy?
Well, we should talk about the NFL preseason game briefly. It's not the official what we learned last night, but very interesting to note in that ball game. All right, Pittsburgh dominated the second half. They were by far the better team in the second half of that ball game, and it showed up on the scoreboard. And Dallas had turnovers, and they didn't execute in the red zone, whereas the Steelers were able to convert on at least two of their red zone chances, turning them into touchdowns after halftime, and after the Cowboys made that interesting decision, shall we say, to go for it on fourth down from their own territory with, 12 minutes left in the game. A fourth down conversion that failed, and then basically ended the game in Pittsburgh's favor. But in the first half of that game, the strongest unit on the field was the Cowboys' offensive line. The Cowboys' offensive line controlled Pittsburgh up front. They controlled the line of scrimmage. And my takeaway from the game is Dallas offensive line good. Pittsburgh starting defense, which lost a lot in the offseason, very questionable. So the final score and the game itself, in my opinion, two very different things in terms of takeaways. But in terms of what did bettors learn, I really wanted to talk about what happened yesterday on the show. The benefit of watching the show every day is not necessarily the picks. Oftentimes it's a criticism of the picks or the questions that we ask or the non-pick related opinions that we offer. For example, yesterday on the show, Prez says White Sox lineup isn't trustworthy. Koken says the White Sox, not a team he expects to make money with down the stretch. Meanwhile, I got Chicago run line in my pocket. The lineup didn't hit, and they lost to $2 favorites. Both Prez and Koken, not official plays, but the information they gave about the game, both spot on. I asked about the Yankees lineup, red hot or just the Orioles pitching that they got the feast on. And then we talked about Seattle's lineup being dicey yesterday. It wasn't a play to talk about the Mariners, Yankees under, but the information that we gave on the show certainly pointed in that direction. We try to be entertaining on WagerTalk Today every day. We try to give you actionable information every day. But the real reason that this should be your daily sports center for gamblers, because it's chock full of tidbits that you can use in your own capping day after day after day. So I got to say, please tell a friend. Football is here. It's growth time for this podcast, or we don't get renewed. So please tell a friend if you like what you're seeing every day. What about you, Steve? What did you learn last night?
Well, I learned I enjoy watching the Olympics more than I expected, Teddy. I haven't handicapped it, haven't released any plays on it. Didn't really watch it the first couple of days a few weeks ago, but I keep flipping it on late at night and finding myself intrigued by it. And there was a 14-year-old diver from China yesterday. And as I turned it on late last night, she gets perfect tens, and their dominance of that sport is just insane. And here's what's even more crazy. Had this Olympics happened in 2020, she would not have been allowed to compete because you have to be 14 that calendar year of the Olympics. So she's going to win the thing, or maybe one gold. I didn't watch all of it, but just incredible how good these young athletes are. And I've actually enjoyed the Olympics a lot more than expected. Baseball, it does look like those Mariners are starting to fade a bit. You mentioned they lost 5-3 to the Yankees. We talked about this on MLB First Pitch yesterday, Dave Koken and myself on Thursday. The Mariners have been a team we know have been overachieving all season long. They've been winning a lot of close one-run games, extra inning games. They've had a lot of one-run losses over the past week. They've lost 3 times by 1 run. They lose by 2 last night. Is that the sign finally that we can start fading Seattle with some confidence? We shall find out. And San Francisco keeps winning. They beat Arizona 5-4. The Giants are for real. They're not like the Mariners, and their run differential is about 150 better than the Mariners. So baseball coming into the home stretch here. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Teddy, any other takeaways before we get to Rob Veno, Olympics, baseball, anything else you're looking at?
I have to ask you about the Olympics, dude, because you're sitting here like, yeah, late at night, after I've been watching baseball or NFL preseason or whatever, late at night, I'm like, yeah, let's watch a bunch of people dive into a pool. I can't imagine. I mean, I click on the Olympics. If there's an actual event going, like I'm clicking through channels, maybe I'll make it to the end of the event. I think I watched a 400 meters something last night where some guys were running and somebody blew it at the end and came back and won. It doesn't hold. And for diving, you may as well watch skating, dude. I mean, it's not gonna, it's the artistry of it. No, I'm glad you enjoy it. That makes one of us.
I'll tell you what caught my attention on this diver, though, and I was flipping around and I hear them go, they put her on the Chinese team at the last moment because she has never lost. So when I heard that, it got my attention. We had an undefeated 14-year-old, and as I watched, she gets a perfect 10 across the board, which I'd never seen before. And then they say she couldn't have been in the Olympics a year ago had they happened in 2020. That got my attention. I like the stories.
Yeah.
I found out what it was, though, Teddy. I like the fact that these events count. Like, they're going for gold. It's not like 1 out of 162 regular season baseball games. There's something on the line. I think that's what draws me to it. But I get what you're saying.
Sure, but they're diving into a pool. They're just diving into a pool. The event is dive into a pool, dude. I don't understand how that holds your attention more than, a minute. I can see you watch a dive. You watch, maybe you wait for another one. But to watch diving all night, no. I'd rather watch baseball.
Yeah, it was 3 dives. I don't think it was more than 5 or 10 minutes. It definitely was not all night. I did find the live water polo semifinals. That caught my attention for a few minutes. I like that water polo. Team handball and water polo, Teddy. Those are the 2 I want to try at some point in my life. See how that plays out. We got to get Rob Veno in here. I know Rob's got some takes on the Olympics. Rob, what events have you caught yourself watching late at night? I know you flipped the dial like all of us. Rob Veno, WagerTalk.com.
And I actually just messaged you guys, but I know what I will be dialed into tonight is the gold medal game. USA versus France in men's basketball, a rematch of, the preliminary game where France actually beat the U.S. U.S. had a 7-point lead into the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, and then went, absolutely stone cold, right? Didn't make a shot the rest of the way, I don't think. But that was a situation where I think Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Devin Booker had just gotten to the team that day. And they wind up barely losing that game. Tonight, guys, just I'll get it out of the way real quick. I do have a play on the game. First half, USA -6. They're 12.5, 13 for the game. But the way they've played the last 3 with 35, 14, and 19-point routes, and the last 2 coming against really good teams, Spain, where Ricky Rubio went crazy. And then, of course, they just beat Argentina in their batch of 3-point shooters. Little bit of revenge. I think the USA is more settled now as a team than they were in the beginning. So I'm going to look for them to come out of the chute quick here with a little first half -6 play. So for the Olympics, that's got my attention. And Steve, I can't back you on diving. As soon as I see that, I shut that off.
Thank you.
I can't back you on that. But
I didn't watch it for long. You guys are misconstruing
No, I could. get behind you with the track and field. The track and field really, some of those sprinters are incredible. Some of the Jamaican runners in this thing are insanely fast. So, yeah, I watch a little bit of the track, but no diving here. No diving.
You're the one
Teddy,
that
what are
said
your
you got
thoughts on
caught
this
up in it. You're saying that we're accusing you. You're like, yeah, I got caught up watching this diving late night. And I'm like,
Yeah, well,
caught up
that's
is
what
like
I mean.
you're stuck.
No, I'm with you, Teddy. Watching 3 divers is caught up for me because that's more than I planned on watching. I literally was going to watch one, but it was so intriguing that the kid had never lost, was 14 and got a perfect 10. I watched a couple more, but that was about it. I flipped on. But, Teddy, he mentions the basketball. One of the things I was watching last night, which I had forgotten about, was the women's semifinal game live at about 1 a.m. Eastern. And they took it to Serbia last night, and they will be in the finals as well. And Teddy, they've won like 54 straight now international games. And we talk about this men's team. The women's team has been dominant. But Teddy, what is your take on that gold medal game? We have that coming up tonight. We have the women's gold medal game on Saturday night. Rob brings up some interesting points. It is a revenge spot from this same tournament in which the U.S. wasn't ready to play. Have you looked at any of the basketball, Teddy? It's the one sport I have kind of dabbled with a little bit.
No, I haven't done a thing with it. I haven't watched a game. I haven't paid any attention at all. So, my opinion on what to do with the gold medal game tonight is to pay attention to what Rob Veno said about it, because it's not a game that I handicap.
Rob, real quickly, we'll move on to baseball. Yeah, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, the France victory over Luka Doncic and the Slovenian team, Nicholas Batum with a block on what looked like an uncontested layup at the buzzer. I mean, it looked like Slovenia was going to win by a point. Miraculous comeback, down 5 with about 35 seconds left, and Batum comes from behind and swats it away to win the game. They've had a little more difficulty, just point margin wise, getting here. They beat Iran, but it wasn't really in convincing fashion. You would think you would slaughter Iran, but they only win by 17, and they come back with a couple of, like I say, a last-second victory last game, although Slovenia was really good, and not an ultra-impressive win over Italy, 84-75. So just think these teams are going different directions here. I didn't mean to cut you off, Steve.
No, I was going to ask you one final question about this game, because you mentioned the first half is half of the game. It's 6, 6.5, 12.5, 13's the game. Being the gold medal game, though, and the U.S. being obviously the deepest team in the tournament, right. Why do you like the first half better than because they're not going to take their foot off the gas in the gold medal game, is how I look at it. So what would keep you off the full game as opposed to that first half?
I don't know that it would keep me off, so to speak. I mean, I wouldn't be totally against betting it. I played first half just because I expect them to come out with an intensity that starts from the opening tip here, 6 points. I think they can get up by double digits early on this team. There's some talk about France being better underneath, and their bigs can take advantage of a smaller. USA goes with 4 guards, let's face it, to start the game, really, if you count Durant as a guard. Otherwise, you could say 3-guard offense. But I think they're going to come out of this shoot here, Steve. The quick turnaround revenge is really the point here. This is not 2019 revenge. This is less than a month ago revenge. And, they were pretty embarrassed by that loss. So I'd expect from the get-go, they send the message. I lay 6. 12.5, they're very capable of that too, especially the way, like I rattled off the scoring margins of the good teams in France's category that they beat in the last 2 games. I mean, Australia, I think they won that second half 55-33. They just turned on the gas and it was all over with. Kind of a slow start there. Don't think they'll have a slow start in back-to-back games.
Yeah, and once again, it's exactly 2-week revenge. I mean, the Olympics started 2 weeks ago to finish this weekend, and France is big. That's been the problem for the U.S. Australia perimeter team. They did hammer them, but I'm with you. I'm definitely not going to fade the U.S. in the gold medal game with revenge. The best team still out there. Let's get to some baseball. The National League East, the National League Least, as Rob Veno and myself like to call it. And by the way, you can catch more of myself with Rob Veno and Joe Ranieri this Saturday, noon Eastern, on SiriusXM. You get Teddy Covers beforehand at 8 a.m. Eastern on Saturday morning on Cover It on channel 204 Sports Grid Radio. So, man, you're getting a lot of Wager Talk. They say we need more content on the weekends here on Wager Talk TV. We move it over to the radio side, SiriusXM channel 204 Sports Grid TV on Saturday. So Teddy will be on at 8 a.m. Eastern. They bring them back at midnight into Sunday morning. And then Rob, myself, and Joe Ranieri, noon to 2 Eastern on Saturday on SiriusXM channel 204. Get on the grid. Let's look at the NL East least. Joe Ranieri's Miami Marlins are the only team with a positive run differential in this division, guys, other than the Atlanta Braves. It's crazy. The Marlins are 9.5 out of first. They're +2. The Mets are -11. Braves are +61. And Rob, for the first time, I believe, all season, they're above 500 now. They're a game up. They're taking on the Nationals, who obviously were sellers. How are you attacking this one tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to play Atlanta run line, guys. I know it's the home team, and there are certain sports bettors, long-time handicapper sports bettors out there that will not play home team run line. Some of them exist among us at WagerTalk, but I'm not one. If I find an edge, I'm going to play the edge. And I think Atlanta -1.5 plus $1 here rates a pretty solid play for a few reasons. I'll start with Kyle Mueller, the starting pitcher here for Atlanta. Since the All-Star break, 3 starts. In those 3 starts, if you combine them all, 14 innings pitched, only 17 base runners, only 2 earned runs. That's a 1.21 whip, a 1.29 ERA. 13 strikeouts, has not allowed a home run. Very, very weak contact allowed by Kyle Mueller, guys. 73 batted balls against him this season as a starting pitcher. Only 4 barrels. 5.5% of the hitters that have hit the ball have gotten the barrel on the ball. So his exit velocity is low amongst starting pitchers. Doesn't get a lot of hard hit balls against him. Those 3 games since the break against Milwaukee, the Mets, and San Diego. 3-pitch pitcher here. He's got fastball, curveball, slider. So he's well equipped to take on the Nationals lineup, which could be minus Juan Soto tonight. In fact, it's likely they're minus Juan Soto tonight, which just, deteriorates the Washington lineup even more. Steve, I think we talked about this last Saturday when we were together with Joe. You take these season statistical numbers, Nationals versus left-handed pitching, #1 OPS in Major League Baseball. But since the trade deadline, you have to kind of take those numbers with certain teams with a grain of salt, because this is not the same lineup. If you look at the lineup that they used 2 days ago against a left-handed starter, Ranger Suarez, for Philadelphia, you hardly recognize anybody with the exception of Juan Soto and Josh Bell. There's nobody on this team in the lineup that's going to be put out there tonight that hits better than 245 against left-handed pitching, unless you consider the rookie movement. And none of those guys have over 25 at-bats against a left-handed pitching against a left-handed pitcher in Major League. So I think that number has to be discarded somewhat here. It's a different offense against lefties. The Nationals bullpen, since they traded Daniel Hudson and Brad Hand in that 4-game series against the Phillies, 12 2/3 combined innings by the pen, 24 base runners, 14 runs, a 9.94 ERA, a 1.89 whip. I mean, it was miserable yesterday. They also lost another game in that series. They've given up runs late in every single game in that series. Don't trust the bullpen here. Braves offense has been on fire lately, and give them credit. They thought the Mets were catchable. They were aggressive at the trade deadline. They went out and got 3 right-handed bats. It's paid off. 54 runs in their last 9 games, 6 per. I think that's a bunch of reasons to be on the Braves here, -1.5 plus $1.
So I guess I have 2 follow-up questions on this one, Rob. And I think you kind of answered one of them when it comes to why you wouldn't play the first 5 for the full game. You want to fade that Washington bullpen, although the Atlanta bullpen scares me at times as well. But from a fundamental standpoint, I'm with you 100%. I'm always looking to ride hot teams and fade cold teams and look at teams whose season-long stats aren't truly indicative of where they are. And that's the case for both of these squads right here. With Washington not as good as their season-long stats would indicate, in terrible current form, and Atlanta coming off a sweep in St. Louis, twice in which they rallied back from deficits in that series. And, of course, a team that looks at least somewhat better since the All-Star break and finally getting over that hump to get over 500. But my question is this, to make a short question long. We have a Braves team that, in my mind, took advantage of a Cardinals team that's kind of fallen apart right now over the course of that 3-game sweep. Is this, with travel, returning home, is this a value spot for Atlanta in this range? Or are we worried at all that it was just the Cardinals melting down, not necessarily the Braves playing a ton better?
Well, we can't ignore the meltdown, right, Teddy? I mean, Alex Reyes out there last night, walk, 5 walks in a row. Runners just, parade around the bases, and they lose the game. So we can't ignore the Cardinal meltdown for sure. I would say at this point in time, where travel and all the other logistical things are concerned, clubhouse morale, to me, ranks above everything. And right now, the Braves are staring down the barrel of first place, somehow, some way. And they're also staring at the Mets and Phillies playing each other in a series where they can make up ground against the worst team in this league, in this division right now. If they beat the Nationals and the Mets and Phillies beat up on each other, we could very well see the Braves at the top of the standings come Monday. So I think a lot of that plays into August and September baseball. It's why I played them here. Real quick, and I don't want to drag this segment out before we get thrown out of here, but the difference between first 5 run line and full game run line, when in this instance, when you're playing a home team like I am and laying runs, this isn't a case here because the first 5 number is minus 125, so there's a 25-cent gap. But guys, we're seeing upwards of 60-cent differences between first 5 and full game. And sometimes you'd rather lay and take your shot with minus $1.05 than minus $1.65, which you see that on a nightly basis now. So the numbers are getting really steep. It's harder. You got to pick your spots in baseball right now because of these steep prices, unless you're willing to lay them. Here's not one of those instances. That was just something I'm throwing out there for the viewers and listeners to look out for. I like Atlanta full game here, though. I think that Washington bullpen will give up some late.
So Rob Veno, Atlanta Braves and the U.S. basketball team, first half, Atlanta Braves, full game. And now we're going to move to college football, which I'm excited about, Rob. 3 weeks to go, guys. We had the NFL start last night. College football starts in 3 weekends. We're nearing the finish line here for the dull days of summer as far as sports betting goes. And Missouri is a team that Rob Veno knows well. He does a radio hit every week out of Missouri. He has the Missouri Tigers shirt on occasionally when he's on these shows. So we want to ask you about the Missouri Tigers, Rob. You know, new coach last year, Drinkwitz, and of course it's a tough season to be a new coach for any team. Limited practice, really the loss of the summer camps. Still 5 wins, probably a respectable showing. This is a team I believe was 5-5 going down the stretch where they lost their final 2. Still got a invite to the Music City Bowl. It got canceled for COVID. So it's now the second season under Drinkwitz. Keep in mind, this guy went 12-1 as the head coach at Appalachian State the year before he was hired. So he knows how to win. Tough SEC, though, Rob. What do we do with Missouri Tigers over under 7 wins this season?
Yeah, and real quick, guys, when my son first went, my youngest went to Mizzou, but when he entered campus as a freshman, the first thing we learned as parents is if you're in Columbia, Missouri, and somebody walks up to you and says M-I-Z, you quickly reply Z-O-U, or else you're treated as an outsider. So that's what we go with here. I think they're going to go over 7 wins, Steve, in this. The schedule, to me, when I look at the schedule, and again, that's how the odds maker sets these numbers, really. They go up and down the schedule. They look for games a team should win, games they think they should lose, and then they post the number. I think Missouri's schedule sets up for 8 wins. Listen, you mentioned it. It's the second year of the Eli Drinkwitz tenure, and it's funny, he was not the first choice. He was not the second choice, but everybody has bought into Eli Drinkwitz now. He is a fan favorite, a team favorite. They love him in Columbia right now. I think that they're going to be extremely more potent offensively, and I think they'll be better defensively here. Offense has 8 returning starters. There's a lot of returning starters across the country because kids had the option to come back, even if they were about to graduate off of the COVID year. But Connor Bazelak, the quarterback, and 4 offensive linemen returning are the real key here for that offense. The running game should be good. The receiving core is as good as ever there. The biggest thing for Missouri here is they play in the East and have to play everybody in the East, and they had the least amount of coaching staff disruption of any team in that particular division. They had none whatsoever, except for they brought in a former NFL head coach as their defensive coordinator, Steve Wilkes, which is a net positive for this team. But up and down the East, there's a lot of upheaval in coaching staffs and systems. I like Missouri for that reason. They got the potential for 5 home wins, means they have to win 3 on the road. And to me, guys, the only unwinnable road game I see here is Georgia. So simple math being what it is, I can add up that high to think that, 7 is likely to be exceeded here by Missouri. Unless they get injury riddled, I think they get to 8 wins. So I played Missouri season win total over 7.
So, Rob, when I'm looking at the SEC, in the East, I see Florida, I see Georgia, and I see a bunch of teams I want to bet against. Is Missouri the 3rd best team in the SEC East? Are they better than Kentucky this year? South Carolina, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, all to me look to be pretty strong bet against squads. None of them I'm excited about. So is this a like Missouri by default because they're in such a weak division of the SEC? And are we allowed to say that the SEC East is weak this year, or is that sacrilege?
Well, no, I think you could say it, Teddy. And again, I'll say this. South Carolina's gone through a complete coaching upheaval and system upheavals on both sides of the ball. Tennessee, complete coaching upheaval, system upheavals. They lost a lot of guys to the portal. Vanderbilt, brand new coaching staff, brand new system. That's half your division right there, where Missouri's already ahead of the pack because they're in the second year of that system. Kentucky had to bring in a brand new offensive coordinator to try and improve their 110-yard per game passing game. They're trying to switch their offense a little bit from run heavy to pass heavy, and it doesn't look, not pass heavy, but more balanced. It doesn't look like they have the personnel to do that. So by default, I guess we could classify it that way. I do think Missouri, personnel-wise, as far as knowing the system and that type of thing, I think they're light years ahead of the other three. Florida and Georgia, obviously the class of the league. I think that Georgia on the road is the only unwinnable game inside the division for them.
Rob Veno, Missouri Tigers, MIZZOU, over 7 wins for this season. Once again, Rob will be on tomorrow at noon Eastern from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern time, Saturday afternoon on SiriusXM Channel 204, Sports Grid TV, online and on Roku devices. Rob, before we let you go, before I talk to you tomorrow afternoon, what you got going on at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, up and available right now, guys. 4% best bet in Major League Baseball. Hey, baseball's made a pretty solid turnaround for me. I have to admit, it was a struggle for a long portion of the season, but the last 2.5, 3 weeks have not been a struggle whatsoever. I think 21-7 or 22-8 in my last 30 plays. So we're really seeing it pretty well right now. 4% best bet up and available right now for tonight's action. WagerTalk.com.
Awesome. Rob Veno, WagerTalk.com, and check him out noon to 2 Eastern tomorrow, SiriusXM Channel 204, Sports Grid TV. Rob, I will talk to you in less than 12 hours, my man. Have a great Friday afternoon and evening. And when we get back from the break, Teddy, calling you out of the bullpen. Get ready. You're going to the mound. Big game breakdown when we come back, 20 seconds.
How much do you want to pay for the NFL and college football season? You decide how much you want to save. Right now, WagerTalk is offering their lowest price for the 2021 NFL and college football seasons. From now through the start of the regular season, we are offering special early bird pricing, but these prices will increase by $20 per sport and $30 for the college football and NFL combo every week until the season kicks off. Save up to $200 this week by buying your favorite WagerTalk capper for the package, and remember, the longer you wait, the less you save.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. And I try to give actionable info on a daily basis in big game breakdown, something for today. But I'm kind of sick of doing baseball. I want to do football. I do. Break down football games. It's that time of the year. So I took the liberty today of leaving MLB on the sidelines and talking about an NFL preseason game for next week. And it's not till next Saturday, but it's one that absolutely stood out. When we talk about betting preseason games a week ahead of time, where the info isn't there, all right, there's got to be something that's pushing me in this direction. So when we talk about Minnesota and Denver, and right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, I'm seeing the Broncos short road favorites, -1, total 34.5. And obviously, there's been all kinds of issues in the Vikings quarterback room. And we don't even know who's going to be available to play QB for Minnesota in this contest. We could well see some upwards line movement towards the Vikings and/or movement towards the over, depending on Minnesota's QB rotation. If any of their guys that are supposed to be in the quarterback room were able to go, obviously Kellen Mond diagnosed with COVID, and the QB room got quarantined. And Cousins and company got back yesterday doing something. We don't know what that's going to look like. All that said, if you watched last night's game, you know where I'm going. All right. Both teams moved the football, but the red zone execution was really dicey. Big plays, the explosive plays, few and far between. There were kicking issues for both teams. There were red zone woes for both teams. There were timeouts left on the field, et cetera, et cetera. This is very typical for the first week of the preseason. And I would expect both of these teams to have their share of red zone execution issues, not that many big plays, et cetera, et cetera. But the bigger kicker here is what we expect to see on defense from these two coaches, most importantly from the two coordinators, or actually the three coordinators. Minnesota has co-defensive coordinators this year, and Andre Patterson and Adam Zimmer, the coach's son. The only team in the NFL, by the way, with co-defensive coordinators. But what did we see last night in the second half, particularly? Steelers were blitzing. What happens when you have a team that blitzes and they're going against third-string offensive linemen and rookie running backs trying to learn how to block those blitzes? You create pressure. You make a mess of the offense, and that's why Dallas's offense didn't work in the second half. So we have Mike Zimmer coming off a bad defensive season, and Andre Patterson and Adam Zimmer. We expect to see a fair bit of blitzing from the Minnesota side. From a defensive standpoint, this is important for them to work on that aspect of the game, especially in a 3-game preseason. The Broncos side had Donatelli, or at Donatello, I should say, has been with Fangio forever. He's with Fangio was when Fangio was a defensive coordinator in Chicago. And again, like Minnesota, an excellent defensive team coming off a terrible defensive season. Fangio's been a defensive mind. The Denver Broncos defense was their strength in theory going into last year, coming off a real bad year. So we have a couple of defensive coordinators that are likely to be blitzing. We have a couple of coaches who are worried about blitzing. We have a bunch of offenses that I'm not convinced are going to execute all that well. This is what I'm looking at, the under. Vikings and the Broncos. And again, I haven't bet it yet, but if I see the total even start to tick down an inch, I'll get there. But right now, we'll see when the line will go up. It's possible that it could. Again, given the Vikings QB room and given that week 1 NFL preseason games have flown over the total the last 2 years, or the last 2 preseasons, I should say. All that said, I'm looking at Vikings, Broncos, under. And there's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Yeah, and Teddy, the first thing that jumps out to me about this game, as you probably know, is that it's a very rare opportunity to take Mike Zimmer as an underdog in a preseason game. Anywhere from pick'em to +1 right now. And I believe, I'd have to look up my notes, but I think he's like 20-5 now straight up in the preseason. So he is a guy that comes to play, and that also can mean he's a guy that'll put a game plan in and he'll blitz and whatnot. Teddy, before we get to Skee and talk some more baseball, I want to finish a little more NFL thoughts with you in case I don't get to talk preseason with you next week before the games kick off again on Thursday. You and I have been doing this a long time, since the 90s, and we started basically when the internet started. And it used to be a field day for us. We dig through those papers. We'd find out literally the game plans. One team's going to play a guy's 3 quarters. The other one's going to sit them. And it wasn't always reflecting the odds. Nowadays, I think all that is known. Quarterback rotations are known, and you kind of have to read between the lines now. How have you changed your approach over the last 25, 30 years handicapping the preseason? Blitzing is one thing I love, by the way. I love the game plan stuff. I think that's something that goes under the radar still. But how's it changed for you since the mid-90s to now the 2021 season, handicapping the preseason?
It's not a question I can answer in in a minute or two. The basic premise is the same, Steve. It really is. You're looking for info. And I'm telling you, sometimes the info, you see something like, how come the markets haven't moved on? You find something in the 4th paragraph down of some beat writer, and nobody read it yet, or nobody who's moving markets read it yet. The basic premise really hasn't changed over the last 30 years. What's changed is the execution of that premise. You got to be quicker to the trigger right now. And the other thing that changed that this year, it's a 3-game preseason schedule, and we have to be aware that we can't expect business as usual from everyone, because coaches are going to approach it differently. So the faster we can find that info, the faster we can get it out to the clients, and the better opportunity we'll have for winning in August. But the basic premise, information wins at this time of year. And if you find the information and you dig and you find it, you should make money. It's not perfect. Sometimes, the information's great, and your QB throws a couple of pick sixes, and so be it. That's not. There are no locks in this world. certainly not in the sports betting world. But from a basic, how do you approach the preseason standpoint, it really hasn't changed all that much. And again, I'll be talking about it a full hour of preseason talk on Cover It with Teddy Covers on SiriusXM channel 204. We're hyping the Sports Grid stuff today. I'll be talking a full hour of preseason NFL concepts. So you can check out this week's show and or in podcast version from any of your podcast outlets.
Once again, that's 8 a.m. Eastern. And if you missed the early show, it's replayed at midnight Eastern, Saturday night into Sunday morning, SiriusXM channel 204 and Sports Grid TV. And yeah, Teddy, it's a great point about that. Information is still the key. But as you said, watching the games is important. Last night's 3-0 into the third quarter, a little misleading. As you said, Dallas's offensive line, they looked like they were capable of probably doing a little bit more offensively. And Pittsburgh probably questionable in defense, even though it was a 3-0 game. That also is not always accounted for, in my opinion, in the following lines. Hey, let's bring in Skee Profit. We're going to have 2 baseball games he wants to talk about. But Skee, I got to quickly get your thoughts. We did this with Rob Veno as well. USA basketball, not only do you handicap the men, of course, but I know you follow the WNBA closer than anybody. And Teddy gave me a hard time for watching 5 minutes of diving, but I actually watched about an hour of the women's basketball game. And Skee, that's probably more women's basketball than I've watched in several years, along with that 5 minutes of diving. But I found myself enjoying the game. The women are really dominating, and it gets lost, I think, Skee, how good they are. This will be the 5th gold medal for Bird and Taurasi. I mean, it's just insane. Nobody has ever won 5 golds in basketball history in the Olympics, men or women. They've now won, I believe it's 54 straight now after the win last night, international games. The U.S. has won, 3 or 4 straight because they lost 2 weeks ago. Skee, real quick, what's your thoughts on both gold medal games tonight, the men, and tomorrow night, the women?
I honestly didn't take the time to look at the odds, but I do think the USA women's team is pretty dominant. I agree with what Rob Veno said as far as the men's. Like, they'll come out and want to play from the start just because they got embarrassed last time they played them. And just on the women's game in general, like, they're just getting so much better. Like, there weren't women who were dunking consistently. Now, if you're looking at high school or colleges, like, you see ladies drop step dunking and doing stuff like that a lot more. So the game just keeps changing. I agree. It's extremely exciting.
Yeah, and that was always actually my knock on it, was that it was below the rim. All seriousness, that's why I did not enjoy women's basketball, but it has gotten better. But I'm seeing, Teddy, you see them as an 18-point favorite over Japan. And
yeah. The women are 18-point chalk, total 159.5, looking at that WagerTalk live odds screen. And, of course, the men, 12.5-point favorites, 13 in a couple of books, total 175.5 against France.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the U.S. women beat Japan by 17, Skee. Does that ring a bell? Already in the Olympics. I think they beat France by 11 or so, and they beat Japan by 17. So it's interesting. It's a rematch here. Unlike the U.S. men where they lost, this team won fairly easy playing the same team. Host country, no fans, though. So obviously the stadium will be empty. Skee, let's get to some baseball, though. You're digging into baseball here before we get to football.
Can I ask you a question before we do that? It might be a little, hopefully you guys know. You probably do know, but I don't bet a lot of NFL preseason. What does the X stand for? Why is it NFL X?
Exhibition.
It's exhibition. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just it's a way to keep, like, in your database, you're like, here's my NFL X records and here's my NFL regular season record.
Exhibition games. Yeah. I guess, Teddy, they don't like that term as much. When you and I were growing up, it was always exhibition, but now it's preseason.
Sure, now
I guess
it's preseason.
That sounds like pre-owned car instead of car. I guess it's the same analogy there, right? It's these aren't pre-owned games, but yeah, they're exhibition. And quick note before we get to baseball, I thought this when you were talking, Teddy, earlier about the 3 games. Keep in mind, we don't know for sure if it's week 2 or week 3, which teams are going to do the dress rehearsal, but they still have the Labor Day weekend off, and they start the NFL regular season Thursday the 9th. So yes, they're playing one less preseason game, but they still have a full week off in between the last game and the regular. They're just not playing that 4th week where they just would play all the backups. So the more I'm thinking about it, I think we might see the dress rehearsal being game 3, but we'll find out. I mean, I think it's going to be a little bit of each, and there's no sense guessing right now. Skee, barn burner, Baltimore Orioles, 3rd worst team, I believe, in baseball against the defending AL champs. This one seems too easy. Which way do you like in this one, Baltimore, Tampa Bay? I'm sorry, Red Sox.
Well, when you say it seems too easy, seems like you maybe like the Rays. I don't want to look towards the Rays in this one. I look at Yarbrough. Last time he was out versus the Orioles, he went 5 2/3, gave up 6 runs. Yeah, that's been all right his last couple starts. But But I just think that the Orioles can hit them. If I'm looking at the last 2 weeks, weighted runs created plus, you have the Rays at 17th versus left-handed pitching. You have the Orioles 3rd versus left-handed pitching. They're also 4th OPS versus left-handed pitching. So I think they're going to smack them around. And the Orioles have been playing well lately. They've won, 10 of their last 17 games. They're 5-4-1. Their last 10 on the first 5. Majority of them is a dog. And I want to avoid that Orioles bullpen. Looking at the last 10 days, 6.43 ERA compared to the Rays at 3.18. So I think John Means can have a solid start. He did get touched the last couple of times he faced the Rays, but his last 12 and 2/3 he's only given up 5. So I'll back the Orioles. Really, I'm backing their bats. I think that they get after Yarbrough. I like the Orioles first 5 plus 115.
So, we've got Tampa coming off kind of a lousy series against Seattle, in which they didn't play well and then kind of eked out a win in the finale of that series. We've got Baltimore, who had been playing well, and they just got annihilated the last couple of games in the Bronx. I mean, it wasn't pretty for the O's. And, of course, when it comes to these two bullpens, maybe as night and day as it gets. Tampa can get outside of their pen, and Baltimore's bullpen is the reason why they got bombed twice in a row by the Yankees. Was this a situation where you'd be looking first 5 as opposed to full game, given that bullpen disparity? Or is this a situation where you want those Baltimore bats for 9 innings, given you like the Orioles offensive?
No, I do not want the Orioles bats for 9 innings. I want no parts. After Means comes out, I don't want anything to do with anybody else. The bullpen disparity is huge. Like I said, 3.18 over the last 10 days compared to 6.43. So I want no parts. Yesterday, I played the Royals on the first 5. Their bullpen was slightly better, and I'm blanking out who they were playing against. The White Sox. Their bullpen was slightly better over the last 10 days. That one, I wouldn't mind if you played full game. But the Orioles bullpen, I want no parts. I talk a lot about live betting and attacking bullpens. They're on my list for bullpens I would look to attack today. I have Boston, Arizona, Pittsburgh, and Minnesota. And so I don't want anything to do with the bullpen, to answer your question.
It's funny, Skee, we talk about these bad teams in baseball, but current form really matters because technically the Orioles have the least amount of wins in the American League with 38. The Rangers have 39, but I feel like the Orioles have been a much more reliable, consistent team the last few weeks than the Rangers. The Rangers have been about the worst team in baseball, in my opinion, the last few weeks. Had that 11-game losing stretch. They did snap that. They did get some close wins against Seattle. I talked earlier in the show, the Mariners are a team that's due to regress. They finally lost some close games, but in one of them was extra innings. Another one, the Rangers had to score 3 in the bottom of the 9th just to win the game by a run last weekend. What's your take on this Texas team? Other than those 3 wins, 2 against Seattle, 1 against the Angels, they basically haven't beaten anybody in a couple of weeks. They're at Oakland tonight.
Yeah, they've been terrible. And the last 21 games, they've only won 4 of them. You want to look at the last 3 games, they've only scored 4 runs. The last, I already said, they only won 4 games out of the last 21. So the last 20 days, they're batting, 182? It's just not a team that I don't want any of my money on them. And I look at Fulte, he's given up more home runs than walks. His last 9 innings pitched, he's only given up, or not only, his last 9 innings pitched, he's given up 8 runs. And on the road, he has a 6.59 ERA. So that's a guy I usually always want to fade. On the flip side, we have Bassett, who's been pretty good. I think he had a shutout start one of his past games, but last 12 innings, he's only given up 4. And the last few times that he's played this Rangers team, 21 innings pitched, only giving up 2 runs. Both bullpens are pretty solid, or have been pretty solid as of late. Last 10 days, 3.84, 3.3. As far as the Athletics, they've been pretty good. After they have an off day, they've won 11 of their last 15. I just want to get behind Bassett. I'll get behind the bullpen. Really just a fade of Fulte. So I like the Athletics minus 1.5. I heard Rob Veno talk about a lot of guys don't like to take the home team minus the 1.5, but I just think it's a big gap between these two teams today.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth noting when you talk about and I got to call it an old concept, an outdated concept of you don't want home teams on the run line. It's priced into the number.
Exactly.
It's not like the markets haven't adjusted to the fact that the home team only gets 8 chances if things go well for the person who's betting them on the run line. That's priced in. So in my mind, that for the modern betting world, for the betting world in 2021, it's not something I'm like I'm afraid to take the home team on the run line. I do want to ask you about the spot for the A's, because it feels to me like, is this a flat? They had that series against San Diego, and then before that, they had that series against LA. And then another series against the Padres. Is this like an exhale spot for the A's? Because I'm with you on not wanting my money on Texas. I don't know if I want my money on Oakland either, just given the spot. Or do you think it's a non-factor here?
I probably would understand if they didn't have that day off. I think that day off just kind of gives them a little bit of a breather, and they seem to do well once they have that little bit of rest. So I think they'll be all right. In general, I agree with the concept, but I like them off the day off.
Yeah, and Skee, I mean, we'd look at the run lines. Oakland, 3 of their last 4 wins have been by 2 or more. They've lost outright. So it doesn't always land on one just because they're the home team. And 26% of their wins this year have been by 1 run. Texas, 21% of their losses have been by 1 run, just 15 of their 70 losses. So, you start looking at the numbers like that. Like Teddy said, it's priced in. You're getting a 250 favorite down to like minus 140 just because they have to win by an extra run. So you're cutting the juice in half, basically. And baseball, of course, is a long-term investment. It's not a day-to-day sport. You have to look at money management, long-term investment, and value. And the A's on the run line would definitely be the way to play it, in my opinion, as well. Skee, before we let you go, what you got going on at WagerTalk.com for Friday this weekend? Football right around the corner.
Well, I would tell people to line shop on that athletics game, or line shop in general. But I took it not too long ago at BetMGM, and I got a minus 125. So better than minus 140 if you can find it. As far as what I have so far, or what I'm working with, I made 2 plays. They're the 2 plays that we've talked about so far. And I have 2 more on my radar that I'm probably going to get to the window with shortly after the show. And just great rocking with you guys. I want to shout out and just tell people, like, if you guys want to learn to live bet or do some of these live betting team totals, I think that's probably the best way to bet baseball right now. So check my Twitter out, at Skee Profit, and I do a lot of live team total betting in MLB.
Good stuff. Skee Profit, WagerTalk.com. Be sure to check out his page. Baseball, football right around the corner. Of course, he is a basketball expert come basketball season, which is not too far away, Teddy. I think it's going to be maybe last year was the shortest offseason ever. If not, this is the shortest offseason ever. And if you figure out that some of the NBA guys are playing in the Olympics as well, it's even shorter for those guys. I normally Prez would do a presidential address. He'd take over here. But I'd like to rule with the people. So I want to close out with you, Teddy. Get a couple final thoughts from you, because I won't get to do a one-on-one with you until maybe sometime next week. The Prez, by the way, on assignment. He's finishing day 3 of his aquatic Olympics. He's had 3 weeks of aquatic Olympics. While you were gone, Teddy, he did some hydrofoiling, wave running. I think he had 5 or 6 different water events in one day. We're very impressed. But Teddy, you mentioned your show this weekend, SiriusXM, Cover It, Sports Grid TV. What else you got going on, Teddy, this weekend at WagerTalk.com?
Well, we'll be doing baseball, man. Football doesn't start till that. That's the thing about the Hall of Fame game. It teases you, right? You're like, all right, we got football. Oh, no, we got to wait a whole week. It's not even like I like it on Sunday when the Hall of Fame game's on the Sunday, and then we go into like, okay, you only have 3 days, and the week 1 of the preseason starts Thursday, but that didn't work this year. So we'll patiently wait. And for me, of course, the weekend, it's going to be MLB. On center stage, and we'll be working the week 1 of the preseason. And as soon as we find good info, we'll post a play up. It's not like you're posting every play at once. It doesn't work that way for preseason. You post it when you get the info. So hopefully we'll have some stuff to post when it comes to the NFL. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I've got a baseball best bet tonight for Friday, but it's a great point about getting a direct subscription. We preach that. You and I do it every time we're on. Long-term investment approach. You get your cost per day down tremendously. And also, most importantly, you get all the plays. And like you said, with the NFL preseason, where you're releasing games at different times, different days, and those numbers are going to really jump around, you want to have a direct subscription for any capper at WagerTalk.com or SportsMemo.com, because you get alerted right away. When we make the play, you get it as well. And speaking of SportsMemo.com, Dr. Chuck is Friday freebie. You get Dr. Chuck's big 5-unit MLB best bet for free. No strings attached. We do this every week at Sports Memo. We pick one capper. You get a best bet for free. It is Dr. Chuck. The doctor's orders are go there right now, sportsmemo.com, and get a free 5-unit MLB best bet for Friday. Dr. Chuck, sportsmemo.com. And once again, Rob Veno, Skee Profit, Teddy Covers, myself, Steve Merrill. You can find all of us at WagerTalk.com. Once again, Teddy will be on Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, replayed at midnight Eastern on SiriusXM 204. Sports Grid TV. Myself, Rob Veno, and Joe Ranieri tomorrow noon to 2 p.m. Eastern as well. Sirius XM 204 Sports Grid TV. Teddy, enjoyed being with you as always. I have a feeling I might get to do this on a weekly basis as the Prez needs to get charged up for the football season in the near future. My man, take us out for Friday and into the weekend.
Sure, that's going to wrap it for this week of WagerTalk Today. We'll be back again bright and early Monday morning, 9 a.m. here in the left coast, noon for you guys back east. Between now and then, enjoy the games and good luck.
What's better than $2 Tuesday at Sports Memo? How about Freebie Friday? We can't go any lower than free, and each and every Friday we'll hand select a best bet from one of the hottest handicappers on the site and give it out for free. All you have to do is each and every Friday, head over to sportsmemo.com. The Freebie Friday will be listed on the homepage, and you'll be just a click away from a free bet.